Hello BookTube, welcome back to my channel. This is a little bit later than I had planned on filming this, but you know, when you just film and upload, it's okay. My library tour continues. We are completely medieval this week. This is the area of interest that fascinates me the most. It is an Achilles heel for me when I'm looking around at books, because there's no shortage of books on and about this topic. There's no shortage of materials from this time period that are, that I could just read and reread it all. And so there's so much in here, and there's so much more that I could include in here. And there's just an endless wealth of stuff that could be added on here. And you're going to see a little bit of bleed over into the next week for some medieval. And we saw some bleed in last week. So I've got a fair amount of medieval. Nothing like the vintage science fiction, but this is a shelf that I'm always on the watch to grow it, because there are so many great ones out there that I just haven't found yet. And speaking of great ones, we're going to start off with one of the greatest volumes on this shelf. That is the Sagas of the Icelanders. This is a Penguin edition. This is a paperback. This is one I got on Thrift Books. I need to eventually upgrade it to a brand new hardcover. But for now, this more than suffices. And it's got hundreds, almost 800 pages of sagas in it, and it has just so many in there, including Eagle Saga, which opens the volume, which is what's being read for Sagalong here in April. So you don't have to have this to be able to read it. There are volumes of just Eagle Saga by itself, but I strongly recommend this. If you have any interest at all in joining along in that, this would be a great volume to pick up, just because they are all fantastic. I read this years ago, cover to cover, and look forward to at some point in time revisiting them all again. Next, we have a Norton Critical of the Canterbury Tales. So this is 15 tales and the general prologue from Chaucer. And the reason why I have this, even though I've got a complete Chaucer, is because of all the stuff that Norton Critical adds in the back. That is invaluable stuff. Now, I'm at a loss as to why I have the rest of my Chaucer separated from this, but that's okay, because it makes sense still where it's at on the next shelf. But then we go into, let's jump ahead. Got some books out of order here. We got some Dante, La Vita Nuova. This is one I have not read, but it is a treatise by a poet written for poets on the art of poetry. So maybe I'll be setting this aside. I mean, this is less than 120, 130 pages. I'm going to set this aside because I want to read that soon. And that's going to be my reminder. We have the Inferno. We have the Purgatorio. And the Paradiso, making up the 3 volumes of the Divine Comedy. All of them in translation by John Ciardi. I wanted to make sure I had the same translator for all 3 volumes. Next, we have Arthurian Romances by Sriti de Troyes, French author, poet, and I think 1100s. I believe he is officially the one that first introduced Sir Lancelot into the Arthurian legendary. And so, if nothing else, Lancelot or the Knight in the Cart. So it's got that complete title. But if you just look for Knight in the Cart, that's definitely a story worth reading. This is, I think, got either 4 or 5 of them in there, and they are fantastic. Among my favorite Arthurian pieces of literature. The Lays of Marie de France. I read this last year, and it's fantastic as well. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with Marie de France, and finally getting introduced to her. A book that I wanted to read, picked up last year with the intention of reading, and still haven't read, But the Book of the City of Ladies by Christine de Pizan. So one of the, along with Marie de France, some of the earliest women writers in English. We have Einard and Noker the Stammerer. Not Kerr the Stammerer. Two Lives of Charlemagne. So this is two different biographies of Charlemagne in here, written by two different, somewhat contemporaries of the period. So older historians writing about Charlemagne. We have Chronicles by Froissart, written on the 100 Years' War. Oh, he is a historian of the 100 Years' War. So this is depicts a panorama of Europe during the great age of the Anglo-French rivalry, from the deposition of Edward II to the downfall of Richard II. Okay. Another one I still haven't read. Most of these are on my, I need to read this eventually. Just like Joinville and Villehardouin, Chronicles of the Crusades. I definitely need to be reading that at some point in time. I still have not read Piers the Plowman. This is a Chaucer contemporary, and one that I've been wanting to read because I enjoy Chaucer a lot, and I hear good things about Piers the Plowman. And again, I picked up a copy last year with the intent of reading it. Machiavelli the Prince. I have read it, but it's been decades now, I believe, since I last read it. Probably around the same time I read Art of War, which I think was in my late teens. We have Les Morts d'Arthur. So this is by Sir Thomas Mallory, Norton Critical Edition. And again, just like anything else, the Norton Critical piece of it is what makes this worthwhile for me. But it's also, it's all in its original blend of older, modern English. So a little more modern than Chaucer, a little less modern than Shakespeare. But I also have works by Mallory, which I don't know for sure the difference between them. I found this at a bargain for free. And I know that some people swear by works by Mallory. I think it's just Les Morts d'Arthur stuff. But it's edited by Eugene Vinevier. So I know that is a highly regarded volume. I think the third edition nowadays. Tale of the Genji, which is a mammoth that I plan on starting potentially this month. I'm still undecided. But this is one that I definitely want to read this year if I can, because I've wanted to read that one for a long, long time. One of the first novels written by a woman, a Japanese woman. Travels of Sir John Mandeville. Have not read that in its entirety. I started it a little bit back in November, and then got sidetracked. History of the Franks by Gregory of Tours. I can't word today. Another that I wanted to read last year, didn't get to, Tristan by Gottfried von Strasbourg. I love when they put stickers in, spots that are just not ideal. Deeds of the Saxons by Wonderkind of Corvey. This is a slimmer volume. I should probably try to get to that soon. Viking Wars. You can see a bookmark in there. I need to finish this one. I'm going to set that in the same pile that Dante is into, because I want to make sure I get around to these soon. But this is War and Peace in King Alfred's Britain, Max Adams. This is on the Viking starter kit. That's the word I'm looking for. Starter kit from Steve Donahue, which I already had it beforehand, but that was the only Vikings volume that I had from his starter kits. Thomas Asbridge, The First Crusade, A New History. The Roots of the Conflict Between Christianity and Islam. Absolutely fascinates me. I know of the Crusade. I know bits about the Crusades and the various ones, but I have not read or gone in depth in any of it, and I really, really want to. The Agincourt War by Lieutenant Colonel Alfred H. Byrne. You saw last week I had a Julius Caesar volume from this Wordsworth Military Library. This is the second of 3 volumes I still have. I had 4 and read one of them last year and was very, very disappointed in it. We have Medieval Iceland, Society, Sagas, and Power by Jessie L. Bayak. Jessie Bayak is a very, very reputable scholar of medieval Iceland. So when I saw his name attached to this, I instantly picked it up. Inventing the Middle Ages by Norman F. Cantor. This is the lives, works, and ideas of the great medievalists of the 20th century. I understand some of you have probably already tuned out. The Northern Crusades by Eric Christensen. Not everybody's going to be as interested in medieval stuff. I'm sure Vin from Revenant Reads is still here. And you might be the only one, Vin. Battle of Agincourt. So another Agincourt volume. Agincourt is one of those battles that's just a weak spot for me historically. I absolutely am fascinated by and can't get enough of reading about. Medieval Machine, The Industrial Revolution of the Middle Ages by Jean Gimple. This is one I read 2 or 3 years ago. Battle of Poitiers, 1356 by David Green. And it's fantastic. This is a great single volume piece of work. It's got some illustrations in there that are just really good. And I could do with more thin single battle volumes from medieval period. I think that'd be a great thing to have. The Norse Atlantic Saga by Gwyn Jones. This is an older book, but it's supposed to be pretty good. Eleanor of Aquitaine and the Four Kings by Amy Kelly. I'm not sure if that should be as considered as nonfiction or historical fiction. I guess I'll find out at some point in time. Castles and Warfare in the Middle Ages by Eugene Emmanuel Vollet de Leduc. Yeah, I'm interested in that. The other Penguin Atlas that I have, and this one of medieval history. And again, it's got a page of text and a page of map throughout pretty much the entire thing, so I could probably breeze through the 90-some pages in here pretty quickly when I wanted to get some books moved off. But one that won't go quickly, The Age of Arthur, A History of the British Isles from 350 to 650 by John Morris. And yes, Arthur, historically, if he did exist, would have been somewhere in that time period. Not the age that we typically view him as being in. He would have been more of a late ancient, very early medieval warlord, most likely in the British Isles. And then we have the Crusades by Robert Payne, which is another Wordsworth Military Library. So that wraps up this shelf. It's all medieval. It's one of my favorite shelves. One of my favorite shelves I've read very little out of. Maybe I need to pause my science fiction kick and just really immerse myself back into some medieval literature, because I found myself as I'm going through, it's like, oh man, I want to be reading that soon, and I really need to get to that. And it's exciting to have so many possibilities, and that's part of the beauty of this 100-book challenge, that Criminali's forced a whole bunch of people to join in, through brainwashing. And yeah, stay tuned tomorrow, I think, for an announcement on that and an update during part of my mishmash. You'll see. Have I reached that goal yet? Where am I at in relation to that goal? Well, you'll have to find out in my Sunday mishmash. So thank you for joining me on this shelf tour. Those of you that stuck around for the whole thing, other than Vin. Yeah, I can't get enough medieval. And it's always one of the sections I go and scope out in detail, both medieval literature and medieval history. So hope you have a great rest of your day.